Hi guys, welcome and who dat? I'm Joe, and this is the initial final 53 man roster for the New Orleans Saints entering into the 2022 regular season. Now we've got a couple of weeks until the first game, and I believe today or sometime this week the Saints are going to make additional moves. But I will post what is initially the final 53-man roster here. And then I'll explain what I think the Saints might do in the coming week and a half. Let's pull up the offense first. The biggest surprise for me is that the coaching staff decided to let Ian Book walk. And this is good news for me. There are a lot of talented players that would have gotten cut had we kept this. Nope. Have we kept this third quarterback? So, very surprised and pleasantly surprised. Ian Book is gone. We've kept the running backs I thought we would: Kamara, Ingram, Dwayne Washington, Tony Jones Jr. We kept the fullback, Adam Prentice. At quarterback, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, and in an emergency, of course, Taysom Hill. This goes without saying. This should have been our train of thought all along. We kept four tight ends. I thought we should because Juwan Johnson has so much upside. I also think that perhaps Nick Vannett isn't ready to play yet. I believe the Saints are going to put a couple of players on IR. Now that the 53-man roster has been set, you can place players on IR and they can come back after only 4 weeks. Anyone placed on IR before that 53-man roster was set is going to be out for the year. So I believe that now we can address uh, Trevor Penning, I believe Traquan Smith, and Nick Vannett. All three of those guys are IR candidates, meaning we'll have three extra roster spots. The biggest disappointment for me is the offensive line, where we've only got one true backup guard in Calvin Throckmorton. Having Lewis Kidd as a fifth tackle is fine, especially since Penning's going to be out for a while. And James Hurst, hopefully he'll be able to play in this first game. Uh, if something happens and Hurst can't go, I believe what the Saints would do next is switch Landon Young over to left tackle. Man, that is risky. I personally would slide Andres Pete to left tackle before putting Landon Young out there. Slide Andres Pete to left tackle, and if you keep Nick Martin or Josh Andrews, then you have plenty of people that can plug into that left guard spot. Calvin Throckmorton looks like the guy that's he's going to be the guy. If any guard goes down, and if Eric McCoy goes down, I guess Cesar Ruiz will be our starting center. Like I say, there's probably three players on this offense that we're going to slide over to IR, and that'll give us three spots. One of those spots, if Traquan Smith misses time, we might give one of those spots to Kirk Merritt and bring him back to have a sixth wide receiver. I don't think we'll bring in a fourth tight end if Nick Vannett's going to miss time. I think we're good with three tight ends, especially if we bring up an additional wide receiver. So perhaps another spot could go to backup offensive line. Yeah, so I'm thinking Traquan Smith will go on IR and we'll bring up Kirk Merritt for a month. I believe Trevor Penning will go on IR for at least a month, and we could bring up an additional backup offensive lineman, whether that be Derek Kelly, who plays left tackle in preseason, he did for us. Bring Kelly back up, or bring Nick Martin or Josh Andrews back. All right, that's the offense. Let's take a look at the defense. The biggest surprise here for me is that we kept Zach Bond. Now, Werner, Davis, and Ellis will be our starters. And our only depth is Andrew Dow and Zach Bond. So I'm assuming if three people go on IR, we're going to bring an additional linebacker, and that linebacker should be Eric Wilson, who can play along the linebacking core and primarily in the middle or next to Davis. So I like that idea of bringing Wilson back. We had to put Albert Huggins on IR. He's out for the year. So we kept the 5 defensive ends as expected, but we decided to keep 4 defensive tackles. Malcolm Roach makes that number 3, and Kentavious Street is number 4. And I'm assuming the reason why, it's because Huggins is out for the year. Otherwise, Huggins would have that 4th DT spot. But Kentavious Street is on the team. And then in the secondary, the biggest surprise, of course, we trade C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles. We also send them a 7th round pick in 2025. And in return, we get a 5th round pick in 2023 and a 6th round pick in 2024. We got whatever we could. We moved along from the player. He was wanting starting cornerback money. We were reluctant to even call him a safety. We liked calling him a nickelback. I think about $10 million a year is about as much as you're going to pay for a third cornerback, nickelback. In my opinion, CD Deuce wanted way more than that. He was probably looking somewhere in the range of 14 to 17 million. We're paying Marshawn Lattimore about 17 million. There's no way we're going to do that. We could get 2 really good veterans for $17 million instead of paying C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who, I think the attitude probably has a lot to do with it as well. It's a great presence on the field, but it got to be a little too much, I'm assuming, when contract extension talks stalled. There have been some reports from practice that CJ was running his mouth, directing it at the coaching staff, you know, stuff like that, going on Twitter and making comments. I mean, Dennis Allen is trying to build a culture here, and I don't have an issue with it. He's a great player, so I'm going to miss him emotionally. I'm hurt, but it makes sense in the end. And safety slash cornerback is the deepest position we have on this team. Keeping Daniel Sorensen instead of, CD Deuce, I guess that's okay. He's so far down the depth chart. It's nice to have a special teams presence. It's nice to have a veteran who can step in at any time that far down the depth chart, because Justin Evans to me is a good player, and I'm so glad we kept him. I believe he's a better safety than JT Gray, but Gray's very good special teamer. And PJ Williams, he's so versatile, and you don't want him to have to start too many games for you at any position. But I can see why we kept the secondary the way it is. So on defense, the biggest surprise for me is keeping Zach Bond in Kentavious Street. There you go. offense and defense, not including kicker, punter, and long snapper. These are 2022 New Orleans Saints, the initial final 53-man roster. So, like I say, I expect to put Penning on IR, perhaps Traquan Smith on IR, perhaps Nick Vannett on IR. They'll be out each for at least a month. And then you bring up perhaps Kirk Merritt. You bring up another offensive lineman, Derek Kelly, and you bring up another linebacker, which should be Eric Wilson. So that's my prediction. If there's a chance for me to do another video before next Wednesday addressing any new roster moves, I will try. Until then, I'm Joe. Please subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this. And who dat?